Hi, this is Ibarionex from the Candid Frame, and today I thought I'd talk about probably one of the most difficult things to capture as a street photographer, and that's human interactions. When we see a lot of pictures on street photography, a lot of it is, as I've mentioned before, people walking or singular people walking down the street or in within a space, and there's this overall sense that we're all living in isolation. But one of the great things that happens on the street a lot is just normal interaction. There's this relationship that people have, whether they're family, whether they're friends, whether they're coworkers, that we witness all the time in our homes or at our offices or in public spaces. But as photographers, it seems to be one of the most elusive things to try and capture. Partly, I think, because we don't want to feel like we're infringing on those moments. But it's something that I think really elevates my photography when I'm able to recognize it and capture it in a photograph. And I think that that really is part of the story of the street. It's not just high contrast images of people walking out from shadow into highlight. As beautiful and as graphic as those images are, a lot of the time I'm trying to see whether or not I can create a shot where I get to reveal how people are with people. So I chose some images that I think kind of reflect that, and so let's get started. First, we have this image by Rex Mandel. He shot this with a Sony SLT A65V at 1/4 of a second at f5.6 at ISO 1600. So obviously it was a really low light situation that he was contending with when he was photographing in this bar at a shutter speed that I normally wouldn't feel very comfortable shooting at, but he manages to pull it off pretty nicely. Sometimes an image doesn't have to be tack sharp in order to be a really good photograph. And I really love this genuine moment between this woman and who I assume is her boyfriend or husband. And their embrace, the way she leans her hand into his shoulder, the smile on her face. There's a genuine moment of intimacy that's happening in here. And Rex does just a wonderful job at capturing the shot here. Oh, it says here in the caption, Simon, one of the bartenders, and his girlfriend. This was towards the end of a raucous evening. So thanks for a little background there. Yeah, I love the genuine moment, but I also like the environment. I mean, this provides us a really great sense of place, and I think that's something that as street photographers we always want to do. We want to be able to capture these genuine moments, but if we can do it in a shot that also reveals place, that provides elements in the shot that not only let us know where we are, but that also provide just really interesting eye candy, that's fantastic. I mean, we not only have a sense of the interior of the bar, but we also have some elements of the street outside of the bar. And all of these things play really, really nicely together. And so it's a wonderful moment. And I think that a lot of us can be intimidated about making shots like these of people that we don't know. But this image really demonstrates why it can be a really wonderful thing to do for capturing just moments just like this. All right, here we have a shot by Michael White, shot with a Fuji XE2, shot at 1/500th of a second, f5.6 ISO 5000. Now, I don't know what the relationship is between these two people, but from the proximity that they are to each other, there has been some level of interaction. I don't know whether they know each other, whether this guy was playing harmonica, and while she was on the phone, move up close to her. I don't know what the story is, but there is some level of interaction, even though they seem to be in completely different worlds. And that contrast, I think, is just remarkable. There is, even if they're not talking to each other, even if they're just ignoring each other to some extent, that is a human interaction that I think is really, really interesting. And there's so much, and it's such an odd photograph, because if they were separated by a greater distance, like 3 or 5 feet, they would just be two people occupying the space. But that proximity between the two of them makes us assume that there is some sort of interaction that's happening or trying to happen. And just the fact that this woman's on the phone and then this guy's blowing into a harmonica, I'm, I'm just trying to figure this out. And if Michael wants to, write down in below his photograph, put the story behind it, I think a lot of us would be very curious to know. But I love the gesture of him blowing into the harmonica, and I love the way her tongue is touching the top of her lip. They both seem so absorbed into what they're doing, and the setting is just great. I mean, you have this background with this nativity scene behind them, and it just takes a really odd scene and just takes it off into levels of the absurd. And it's a very, very fun shot. Imagine this photograph without one of these people in there. If it was just the woman, or if it was just the guy blowing the harmonica, the shot in and of itself wouldn't be that interesting. Even with this unusual setting behind them, it would just be another shot of someone doing something in front of a storefront. But you bring them together in this shot, and all of a sudden you just get locked in. It just makes you very, very curious. And it makes you really linger on the photograph because you're trying to figure out exactly what's happening here. What is this about? And I think it's a wonderful, wonderful photograph. All right, here we have Joaquin Sten, who shot this with a Sony RX100 at 1,250th of a second at f4 at ISO 200. This was an arrest. I don't know exactly what country it's in. Policia, maybe Spain or somewhere in Central or South America. By the uniform, I'm assuming it's somewhere in Europe. But in any case, this is something that happens out in the street on occasion. Someone getting arrested for whatever reason. And I know not everybody here lives in the United States, but here in the States, there have been all these issues about photographing police people at work. And, we have the right to be able to do it as long as you don't interfere with the police. But some people can be very hesitant about photographing police. But in this case, I'm glad that they did, because I think this is a fascinating photograph. The body language of the person who's getting arrested is just fascinating. I mean, we don't even see their head. They're just this sort of headless being. And the dominant thing is their hands and the handcuffs, which just in terms of a graphic shot is just, I think, amazing. The lighting here really helps to draw our attention there, and the way that the police officer is leaning away towards the right edge of the frame. And we also get the reflection of his vest in the lower right-hand corner. But what makes this shot really interesting is we have the cab driver who's being illuminated by this directional warm light, and his sort of passing judgment on what's happening in front of him. I think that is just great, because we have different relationships here, right? We have that of the policeman and the person he's arresting, right? There's a relationship there. But there's also a relationship between the driver and the person who's being arrested, where this cab driver, is obviously, thinking about what this person did, or based on his looks, he's going to be seeing his face to some extent. He may be making assumptions in terms of how deserving this person may be of getting arrested, or just curious as to why it is. But think about that whole dynamic, about these relationships that are going between these three people. I think that makes for a really fascinating photograph. And it's not that we get to witness and photograph police interaction to this extent a lot as street photographers. It does happen on occasion. But I think that this does more than probably the typical photograph of someone being arrested, and that is showing the reaction of the people who are in the vicinity, their reaction to what's happening there, whether they're not happy about it, whether they're pleased about it, whether they're completely indifferent. That's part of the story. And being able to create a shot that reveals all of that in a single frame, I think it's tremendous. It's tremendous. And add great light, and how can you lose, right? So wonderful job, Joaquin. All right, here is a shot by OYC, shot with a Canon X6i, shot at 1/400th of a second, 5.6 at ISO 100. Now, here's a scene that, as part of our modern culture, we see all the time. People taking selfies of themselves and each other. And I like this shot just because of setting. I don't know exactly where they are here, but obviously with all the bubbles and the crowds, they're somewhere where there are obviously a lot of tourists. Maybe San Francisco. I'm not really sure, but that doesn't really matter. But I like the fact that the environment, as with some of the other images before, plays a really big role in this shot. It's not just two women taking a selfie of each other, which that's the act that's happening there. You get to see that they're having a relationship with each other in this frame. They're connected. There's a joy that you can see that's obviously on their faces as they're taking a picture here. But you also see that in the crowds around them, and how even in the midst of this genuine moment that they're sharing, everyone else is in their own little world. You have people in the background. There's another person taking a picture with a selfie stick. There are people in the background here, one who's taking another picture with his camera phone. There's a woman here with which looks like a DSLR. You have people over here that seem to be looking at something. Everyone is in their own different world. They're all not really interacting with each other other than these two. And I think it's the contrast that's created that makes this shot interesting. Here are these two people that are sharing something together, and then there's everyone else who's off in their own unique world. And that it seems like the only genuine interaction, the only genuine human interaction is with these two women. And everyone else is sort of, well, they just seem to be just there. And I think it's that contrast that makes the shot really interesting. I mean, you got some really great light, you got some wonderful shapes and patterns that are happening throughout the frame, which really helps the photograph. But I think it's that contrast in terms of what we're seeing in terms of emotion, in terms of relationship, that makes the shot really, really interesting. Okay, and here's the last shot by Mario Andrei Pantoja, and shot with a Fujifilm X100G at a 120th of a second at f2 at 1600. Now, I know a lot of people think that you shouldn't photograph people from behind because it's just like, it's kind of like being lazy. You should, if you're going to photograph people, don't photograph them from behind. Show their faces. Be bold. Don't be so scared. But sometimes photographing people from behind can be just as revealing, if not more so, than photographing them from the front or from the side. And I think one of the reasons that happens here is because of the gesture of them with their arms together. I don't know if they're related to each other. The hair seems to be pretty similar, and their body types, so that they may be sisters, or they may just be good friends, or I don't know what the relationship is, but the gesture of the arm being slipped around the other person's arm, and their closeness as they're waiting to cross the street, that tells me so much about who they are. And then you read more into it in terms of the similarity of their attire. They're wearing t-shirts and blue jeans. The hair is pretty similar. And it's an interaction. It's a human relationship that's being revealed within the context of the frame. And it really helps that you're using a very shallow depth of field, because there's a lot of busyness in the background. But it helps, that shallow depth of field really helps to isolate them and to reveal that moment that they're having as they're about to cross the street. And this is something that I'm always trying to look for. Moments where people just have connections with each other, where they're showing relationships with each other, where they're reacting to each other. I mean, that's stuff that's just great fodder. But you have to be prepared to be able to, not only see it and react fast enough to make it happen. If you've been photographing on the street a lot and you're feeling frustrated that a lot of your shots are the same, particularly if you're just taking pictures of singular people walking up and down the street and all that stuff, make the challenge for yourself to look for and try and photograph scenes that reveal relationships and interactions and reactions. I guarantee you that if you make that effort over a short period of time, you'll start seeing a real big difference in your photographs. And it can be a real wonderful thing to start seeing on your screen when you do that. All right, that's it. But if you have just found us and you don't know anything about the Candid Frame, it's a podcast in which I interview photographers from all over the world, both established and emerging, and we have conversations that usually run about 45 minutes. And the conversations aren't about cameras and gear and technique. It's about photography, living a photographic life. And you can download the Candid Frame app, which we have available for Windows, Android, and Apple iOS. So you can go through the entire archive right now as of this recording. I have 310 episodes up, so it's over 300 interviews with photographers from all genres and from all over the world for you to listen to and be inspired by. So check it out by going to thecandidframe.com. And as I mentioned before, if you want to see what I'm doing as of late with my own photography, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm posting an image every day on there. So if you go to Instagram, and just search for my name, Ibarionex, and you can just follow me and you can see what I'm doing with my photography. In the near future, I'll probably be doing a few more videos profiling what I'm doing as a photographer. I'm doing that on occasion now, but I'm hoping in the coming months I'm going to do a lot more of that so I can share my own personal experience and share that with you. But also, if you're just interested in being part of our growing community here of photographers, just go to Flickr, do a search on the Candid Frame. There'll be links in the show notes below as well, and I'll be glad to add you to the community. I pull images here for these videos every time from the submissions photographers, and we have couple of thousand people already in our group, and it's growing on a weekly basis. It's really, really amazing. But thanks to all of you who have been submitting images over the last couple of months and interacting. And thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time.